Hey everyone, Stephen Lowisz here for GTM Secrets, everything go to market, sales, marketing, demand gen, you name it. We've probably talked about it or will. Today I have Derek Weeks on, who is certainly a veteran marketer. I'm excited to have him on. Derek, I don't want to steal your thunder, so mind sharing a little bit about yourself?
Stephen, thank you for inviting me to be here. Absolutely. So I'm a B2B marketer in the software realm. I've been in software for 30 years. Absolutely love marketing. I'm usually in B2B software companies that are venture-backed startups trying to grow from nothing to something out in the market. I'm currently at a company called Katalon. I'm about 10 months into this particular experience. We are a company that's in the automated software testing space, helping companies that have web applications, mobile applications, desktop applications, make sure that they work as expected for their work, for their users when those applications roll out. But I've generally spent my career in, DevOps, IT operations, somewhere tied to the software development realm. And I love it because not only working at a software company, I get to kind of work with the personas that are in the back building our product and building the technology, like those same people we're trying to serve out in the market, which is a fun way of showing up to work and doing what we do.
Well, you certainly have experience. Okay, cool. So
Yeah.
you've spanned the gamut, large to small business. Well, it doesn't get much bigger than HP. Let me ask you this. So just starting out, what are some of the biggest challenges let me preface this. You are targeting a very difficult audience. They are technical. They tend to be a little less emotional, but you still have to sell them
Yeah.
on story and why you're doing what you're doing and how it impacts them, etc.
Yeah.
When you're looking at DevOps folks that you are selling, what are some of the biggest challenges that you have, whether it's, demand gen, quality leads, analytics, attribution, what's on top of mind?
Yeah. I think, it's a really good point about like, is this particular audience harder to sell to than other audiences? I think if you take maybe traditional marketing approaches, it's harder to get to these audiences. I think the thing that you have to keep in mind, if you were targeting DevOps personas or developers or people in quality assurance or software testing, they don't play into hype very much. They're very curious. They're always looking for kind of a new way, a new way to approach something, a new technology to play with or experiment. And they really want a human to human conversation. Hey, I'm looking to I want to be a better DevOps pro. Can you help me? I want to be a better quality assurance pro. Can you help me do that? And the helpfulness that you can facilitate in the market builds that brand trust, builds the trust with the market that you're trying to go after. Of course, the technology has to be helpful to them, and they are very quick to assess that. But I think, when you go out to people and you spend too much time on, we have the newest, greatest, most exciting thing, the best features, the best performance. These are people that work on making those things happen in products. So they're skeptical to start with.
Their BS meter is up.
So what's interesting in the market that I'm in, especially quality assurance people, imagine that you're working with an organization where the marketers are like, you're building our product and it's going to be great, new features and everything. And the developer is like, this thing that I've built is super innovative and we're really pushing the leading edge on this. And the quality assurance people, the folks that have to test it and make sure that it works are like, I've heard that my entire career. And my job is literally to break the thing that you built. There is a flaw in it. There is a bug. I will find it. So if you try and go out to that audience and just hype it up of like, we've got the newest, best thing, they're like, no, you don't. No, like I've never seen it. It will break. I will find out how to break it. And so you have to be very authentic. You have to be very human centered. You to talk their language. This is really important in this side of the market that when you have marketers talking their language and the more hype or promotion or like we have some cool new thing, it doesn't resonate. So for instance, at Katalon, we have a number of employees that are not necessarily in marketing, but at our company that have experience, that have been in this market for a long time, that have actually deployed and scaled organizations and technology as such. And we're putting them in front of our audience. Like, how do you go from manual to automated? How do you switch from an open source to a commercial solution? How do you scale a team from 5 to 30? How do you build a center of excellence around this technology? These people at our business have done this. So from a marketing perspective, we're putting them in front of our audience in video, telling a story, a short, minute clip or whatever that says, here's someone that has experience, that talks your language, that knows that have been down this path. You can trust that person. And as such, you can trust our business. And as such, you can trust the products and technology. And making that connection, human to human connection, is really important.
It has been interesting. You're essentially, I mean, tell me if I'm wrong, but you're essentially talking about UGC type content, testimonials, etc. That's been a big thing in B2C for a long time. But man, the amount of LinkedIn posts and ads and whatnot that I see that are now somebody, I forget what LinkedIn calls it, partner ads, something like that, where you can tout somebody else that's talking about your product. It's insane how many there are now, and it's because it works. So I certainly hear you on that. I can't relate as much on not having the hype factor. I sell MarTech. If you don't have a little hype, they're probably not buying.
Yeah.
So one of the things, and you kind of flirted with this topic, but one of the things that you're big on is community-led marketing.
Yeah.
So you're talking about incorporating these people into your marketing strategy, having them tell stories, testimonials, whatever you want to call them, or a mix of everything.
Yeah.
What does community-led mean to you, though? Is that having a good LinkedIn page? Is that having a Slack community? Or maybe in your world, it's Discord? What does that actually mean practically?
Yeah. So I do talk a lot about community. I wrote a book called Unfair Mindshare on community-led marketing. I have grown communities at my past companies from 0 to 100,000 members. At Katalon right now, it's mid-December that we're recording this. By the end of this month, we will be over the 100,000 mark in our community. Probably today we're at 98,000 and we grow about 3,000 a month. So some point around Christmas, we're actually getting to that mark. But here's the thing that's really important about community. There are a number of things that are important about it, but a lot of marketing research that you can look at says out of the market or the industry that you're in, there's only about 5% of buyers that are in market right now looking for a solution that you might have to offer. And then there's 95% that are just not looking, right? But it's, you need to focus in order to grow your business. You want to focus on the 5% that are in market and convert those. But what do you do with the other 95% that are not in market? Part of what you can do is set up practices that are helpful to the community that you participate in, that you work in, to going back to the very simple premise of help me become a better blend, right? Whatever that profession is. And that doesn't mean tell me about your product all the time, Stephen. I just want to hear about your product over and over and over again. And then when I'm ready to buy, I'll be there. How do you make me a better marketer? How do you educate me? How do you connect me with other people that I can ask questions to? So in the community efforts that I've led prior, we build a forum for people to come and join and exchange information and meet other people and have conversations. How do I do this? I have a challenge. I'm tasked with this particular thing. I'm looking for some insights. I was just on a community call with chief marketing officers before this that I've been in for years. And we were talking about how do you discuss the value of marketing at a board level. That was this week's conversation. And we had about 100 people chime in on this various topic and contribute. That is being helpful to me. There's a vendor behind that community, but they're not pitching. They're just providing the forum for people to gather and exchange and improve themselves in their particular profession. By creating those forums, a couple of things happen. One, you're building trust and relationship with the market so that when they do become part of that 5% that's in market, you have a better chance of getting a seat at the table. When they're not in market, the thing that the community is doing through all of these exchanges, and we see this very often in our own community at Katalon and in previous communities I've built, is the community is coming together and sharing information. So someone says, I have a problem. I come in and say, I have a problem. Steven's like, oh, actually, I have experience in that. Here's what I did. Joe comes in and says this. Mary comes in and says this. This is the community creating content that is helpful to them, that is very relevant to them and their work. And if that information or content is searchable, right, or findable, people can come and access that and say, this is where I go to help, because there's really helpful knowledge sharing and content in these places. So our Katalon community gets about 80,000 visits a week, or readers a week participating in what's there. And it's not because we went out as a company, we hired a bunch of people and said, create content and just load it in the community. The community came, we invited them, they had the conversations, and those conversations are what attracts people into that. And sometimes we would take like the conversation between me, you, Mary, Joe, whoever, we would take that thread and then we take it and polish it into something like a blog and say, here's a relevant conversation that happened this week between these people. Let us tell you that story. And we convert it into different types of content. But communities can be a great source for marketers to develop content in a free way that, I don't have to pay anyone on this community to create content for me.
Right.
The community does it organically, but it's very relevant to the other 95% of the market that you may serve.
So I've got a lot of questions about that. We might derail a little bit from the initial conversation that we have planned. Talk to me first. I thought forums were dead, and obviously what you're saying is quite the opposite. So historically, you've taken a forum format as opposed to the typical LinkedIn group or Slack, Discord, etc. Is what you typically use, or is that just a Katalon?
We at Katalon, we have discourse. When I was back at a company called Sonotype, our community for DevOps globally was on Slack. That was where people came and interacted with each other. We also complemented those with other things. At Sonotype, with the all-day DevOps community that we ran there that turned from 0 to 100,000, we had an annual conference where we invited people to come and present various knowledge about a number of different subjects, none of which had to do with our company or our technology. It was just share information that you think others will be helpful with. You have 30 minutes on the agenda. We had 180 speakers come over a 24-hour period. Those speakers created 90 hours of content within 24 hours, and we paid nothing for it. We didn't pay anyone to produce that. And we generated a huge audience. We'd have 30 to 40,000 people come and watch this because we promised we're going to educate you about DevOps practices, and it's free. And it's online, so you don't need any budget. You don't need any travel costs, anything like that to come there. The same thing with our forum at Katalon is it's free. Anyone, you can go and register or log in today. You can read it actually for free without even registering, but in order to contribute, you have to sign in to identify yourself as a user and not a bot. But we also offer things like free training and certification in this profession that we're targeting to be helpful to them. But this is where you have to think of, a lot of people think of community as like let's just build a place where people can go and learn about our product or our company. And actually, like, very little of your day do you actually want to do that. You just want to learn how to do your job better. And that's where people need an opportunity for exchange and conversation. And where do I connect with like people in my industry that know what it is that I'm asking, right? I want to go in a place where other marketers like me or other CMOs like me are talking about things that are relevant to me. Where do I learn that? Because I can't turn to anyone. There's no other CMO inside my business that I can turn to and say, how do we do this? So forums are a really good place to do that. The one I was just on this morning meets every Friday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern time. We've been doing this for years, right? But this is the forum that we gather, and the vendor behind it just provides the forum for us. They don't guide we might have a topic every week that we're talking about, but it's a topic that the community cares about, not that the vendor cares about. And that's part of communities. Is the first rule of communities is don't talk about yourself.
Yep.
Right? If all you do is talk about yourself, no one will show up again for the second meeting.
I come from the RevOps space. I ran a RevOps agency before I started Identity Matrix. And I would join a lot of RevOps groups, like Slack channels, etc. And they were so irritating. The amount of notifications, or a lot of the questions and thoughts were very elementary, etc. Now, I took a look at your community. You allow anybody and everybody to come in. How do you help people get the conversations that they want and ignore all the noise and generic content that other people post?
Yeah, I think that it's a good question to have, and part of that is when you start any community, and part of how we've done it well is we often don't start from have a team inside your company create this community, right? Because the team inside the company is like, we work for this company and we represent these products and this, company brand, and therefore we want to talk about ourselves. When we started All Day DevOps, when we were at Sonatype, there were 2 of us that worked for Sonatype, and there were 5 people outside of the business, didn't work for us at all. They weren't even marketing people. They were just in the DevOps community. Yep. And we said, we want to do this thing to help educate people, right? And to provide this forum. What do you think would resonate? And how do we have this conversation? And what would bring people into this community? And the important element of this, because I have a lot of conversations with people that are like, hey, I want to start a community. Like, okay, you can start it. What's the idea? Why would someone show up? And they, they'll tell me, and I say, why would someone want to show up again and again and again? What would make Steven show up 10 times in this place?
Right.
And they don't think about that. They're just like, they're marketers, right? So they're like, I just want to get people to show up. Like, we have a webinar. I just want people to show up. We're hosting an event. I just want people to show up. But they don't think about this relationship building that is the human side of community that says, Steven, I have this group of marketers and we have these conversations and I think you would benefit from joining in, and here's why. And when you go there and you're like, wow, this was amazing. I want to show up again. I need to show up tomorrow. I need to show up next week because I had this experience. You have to craft the community to support that. And it's very much the outside your company realm that communicates with that reaches that or provides that relevance. And so let me tell you another thing that's like, because the community side for a lot of marketers is pretty soft, right? Like, okay, I get it. It's touchy. It's feely. Like, people show up, they're feeling good, but like, how do I make my board care about this? So back at a prior company, when I ran this large community, we had a product community that we invited people to. And we had a annual conference. We might get 2,000 people at that conference. When I did something beyond our product and our company that was a community of interest, we attracted 40,000 people to our conference. as a marketer, when I think about getting an audience, and you as a RevOps pro or demand gen pro, if I say, I can get you an audience of 40,000 people, or I can get you an audience of 2,000 people, which would you rather be in front of? Right? You'd rather be in front of the audience of 40,000 people.
I do have a couple of questions for you.
Yeah.
One, how do you get your first 100 or so members? And let me throw a caveat in with, out of those first 100 or so members, I assume only a fraction are actually going to participate.
Yeah.
How do you get those key engaged participants?
Yeah. I'd say, so let's not go after 100 is what I would tell you. First of all, I would say go after 10.
Okay.
Right? Find 10 people that you want to get together with weekly and have a conversation. And have a conversation that's relevant to the group. Like, you're meeting for happy hour with people that are in your, whoever the group is, whoever the persona is, right? And invite them to have a conversation on something that they feel is relevant. And let that conversation flow, right? If you did it once and the people that were there said, this was really great, you have to find a way through that conversation, maybe in the conversation or offline with some of those people, and say, what do you think would be a great topic to talk about next? What's really bugging you? What do you really want to advance your knowledge on? Or just, if I provided you like a forum, 45 minutes to rant, we're not going to record any of this. Like, what would you say if your peers or your manager or whoever didn't show up? And have that topic. And that's why before I said, when you start a community, start with people outside your business that can drive it, because your mindset inside your business is, I need to grow this thing. I need to get attention. I need to get revenue, like somewhere through this. And the people outside of the business, if you can invite outsiders in from the beginning, can say, this is what I think is relevant to me, right? This is what I spend my day on. This is the challenge that I have. I would show up next week if we talked about one of these three things. Okay, let's put that on the agenda. Let's show up and talk about that. And when people find that reason to come back, then you know you're onto something. And when you have other people outside of your own business suggesting things, that's what resonates. So one of the community rules that I have in my book is called the rule of yes, that we employ a lot in our communities. So Stephen, you come into our community and you're like, wow, this is pretty cool. I like this. I've participated for a while. You know what this community really needs? Like, what would make it even more valuable to me is if the community did this. And rather than us as a business saying, okay, we'll take one of our employees and try and make that. Our response was, Stephen, that's an awesome idea. If you lead that, we'll support you, and you can be the champion of that thing in the community. So when we were running this big conference, one of my favorite stories is running this big conference. We have 4 tracks in the conference that are going simultaneously. And this guy, Sumit, I was having dinner with in London, said, you know what you need? You need a cultural transformation track in this conference, because that's part of a big thing that's missing in DevOps at the time. And I said, Sumit, that's great. If you want to run that track, we'll add it to the conference. And not only did we start that track, he ran it for 6 years.
That's all.
Right? So it was inviting the community to say, Sumit didn't work for us. He worked for a bank. He was a DevOps professional, right? And he said, this is what's missing. And this is what, if someone contributed this, it would be more valuable to me and I think others. And when he started that, it became, it was relevant to him. It was relevant to others, and others started contributing. And they're like, yeah, I need to talk. I think I can share some knowledge on this. Let me come in and share some knowledge and start the conversation or be part of it. And that helped us not define or put boundaries on the conversation. The community decides the conversation. Our job was make sure the forum is there for people to have the conversation. and make sure that the forum delivers on the brand promise that you said. Like, I'm not going to direct your conversation, Submit, in this track. You're going to lead it. And if he led it and all of a sudden started taking off, I'm like, Submit, you've done a great job at, building this. There's now 3 people in that conversation. Let me take ownership of that because it's become really relevant and important. That would erode that 3,000 people membership or conversation in that. And that's why outsiders are so important at the community level, right?
That makes sense. Now, let me dive really nitty gritty. If you were building, so right now yours is called the Katalon community, right?
Yeah.
How do you feel about, in some cases, I imagine it makes sense to use your company name. And in some cases, I imagine you want to distance it or at least come off a little less salesy, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
When do you do which?
I think so. There are product communities and there are communities of interest. Both can exist and both can coexist, right? And so this week, for example, in Vietnam, our company helped facilitate something called TestCon in our industry. This was not about Katalon and our products. Our employees were helping to orchestrate this forum of TestCon, of an in-person and online conference, but they immediately invited people from the outside, people that didn't work for us, that worked for other vendors in the market or worked for other local communities in the testing groups in Vietnam, and said, hey, we want to do this. We want to provide a forum for people to have a conversation and learn together and come together. Would you help? And they said, that sounds like a cool idea. I'd like to become a better QA professional. I'll show up and I'll help tell other people about it. And we had 700 people show up to this thing. And that was not a Katalon branded thing.
Right.
In fact, if you went to the site testcon.net, you have to scroll all the way to the very bottom of the page that in like light gray lettering said powered by Katalon, but it was not a Katalon branded thing. And I think if we went out and said, this is a Katalon thing, it's our company, we have a product, we probably would have had 70 people show up to that because no one wants to hear a vendor pitch, but they do want to become better in their career, right? So I think there's always this balance of you can do both, but kind of what are you getting after? Now, here's the thing. If I had 70 people show up at our company pitch, right? They know our company, they're familiar with our product. I'm going to follow up on communication with them. I have that small audience. Now there's an audience of 700 people that I can follow up with and say, by the way, we produce a state of the industry report, also nothing to do with our products. Would you like the state of the industry report? Oh, you would? Okay, well, here's that. Oh, by the way, we have a community of people online that's 100,000 people. Would you like to join that? Of course, I'd like to join that. Now I'm a company that's being very helpful in multiple instances to 700 people that showed up. Now my trust, my brand relevance is more important within that community. And again, when they become part of the 5% that wants to invite people to the table to talk about technologies like what we have a higher chance of getting the seat at that table because of that.
Do you have a mechanism for saying this is how much our community has generated in terms of ops and so forth?
Yep.
Not the point, but there's always a subtle, you're doing it for a reason. It's not just altruistic.
100%. And that's really like the book that I wrote, Unfair Mindshare, is not about how do you build a community? Because there are lots of really good books out there that talk about how do you actually build a community that I could recommend as well. But the book was really about if you have a community, how do you connect it with the rest of marketing and how do you connect it through metrics that say this? So we know from our community and through our demand gen efforts, with everyone that's in our pipeline, how much are they participating as part of the pipeline journey that we have in marketing? How many of them touch the community? How many of them are particular people from an account are in our discourse conversations, have joined that group? How many people have taken the free training and certification that we have within our community before they become a customer? After they become a customer, how many touch points are there? And we can directly report on the average business that we win deal from, get revenue from, have X number of participants in our community. There are X number of touches before this account becomes a customer. There's X number of activities. Those people that touch the community and multiple touches through the community, and we measure it as you have to have at least 6 touches in the community to be marketing in what we'll call marketing influenced internally, to be tied to revenue. So our lead of community says, I can attribute X dollars of new logo revenue to Katalon's business through the community, and these are the touches that make that happen for these individual accounts. And we can also go to our sales team and say, by the way, this particular account, this customer in this region, or this partner that we sell with in this region, has had 30 people join the community this month, this quarter, what have you. Is this a deal that's in flight? If so, recognize this is another buying signal that these people are becoming more interested in our company and our brand and what we're doing. But we very much report on that at the board level. Here's how many people are in our community. Here's how often accounts that we're winning in are touching our community. Here's how accounts that we've won at are increasing their participation in our community. And by doing so, making them a much more likely to renew or more likely to expand customer within what we're doing. We absolutely track that tie from community into revenue. And if you can't, the thing that it does is it makes it much harder as a CMO to say, why am I going to contribute X amount of dollars, usually somewhere between 5 and 10% of my budget? Why am I going to contribute that amount of money to supporting the community next year? What return is it getting us?
Yeah.
I don't run the community, but I do run the budget and marketing. And I want to know that the thing that I'm investing in is getting a return. And if you can't make that connection, and my book talks about how to more explicitly make those connections, then you're going to find it harder to tell your CEO and your CFO, why should I keep investing in this thing other than it feels good? People like being here, like they do. But it's hard to, put dollars behind feel good versus if we drop money in this particular kind of event that generates these leads, that generates this revenue, that's much easier to say, I know this action created this revenue. Community has to work the same way. And a lot of communities don't. They're just we're just here to build trust and build relationships. Someone actually has to make the connection. Otherwise, what you saw when the economy turned down, the first groups to be laid off in marketing, community. They were we don't get it. We can't measure it. We don't know why it's here. I know there's supposed to be some brand trust, but it wasn't measurable. So we'll cut it.
Makes sense. You have me very intrigued, even for selfishly my own company and so forth. 2 things. 1, go buy his book. Everyone listening, go buy Derek's book.
Here.
There we go. Unfair Mindshare. Love it. So go buy his book. I assume it's on Amazon, Derek?
Yep. It's on Amazon.
All right. Now, everyone says LinkedIn, but where is the best place for people to connect with you?
It is LinkedIn. I am on LinkedIn multiple times a day. I always tell people that there are a whole bunch of people on LinkedIn that every time I post, and I've joked about this last month or the month before, the more I post on LinkedIn, the more sales calls I get. Someone Derek, I wonder if you're in the market for this, blah, blah, blah. But when people actually reach out to me on LinkedIn, I heard you and Steven talking about this thing and I had a question, I am very much the guy that will answer that question. If you're the salesperson out there that's thinking, I heard Derek and he's a CMO that's active, let me go and pitch him. you're not going to get response.
LinkedIn has become a pitch fest
Yeah.
akin to email
Yeah.
for
But
sure.
I love it when people reach out on LinkedIn, and usually a couple of people a week reach out with something, and I just want to be helpful. Very much in the community mindset. I want to be helpful to other people. If I can do that, reach out with your questions. I'm very easy to find. Direct message me there, and yeah, I'll respond as soon as I can.
I love it. Derek, this is super insightful. It's not a space that I'm super familiar with, or a function of marketing that I just don't have experience with. So very insightful. Really appreciate having you, man.
Yeah. Thank you, Stephen.